Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're not just looking at Bitcoin from afar.
Yep.
We're diving right into the engine room, looking at the software that actually makes it all work.
Yeah, the code itself.
Our focus. It's the differences, maybe subtle sometimes, but pretty significant, between two key full node implementations, Bitcoin Core and Bitcoin Knots.
Exactly. We talk a lot about who uses Bitcoin, who mines it,
Yeah.
but the software people run, that's another really crucial layer of decentralization.
Right. It's not just one program everyone uses.
Not at all.
So our mission for this deep dive is to really get a handle on these distinctions, core versus knots. Why do these different versions even exist? And what does that tell us about, the health and the evolution of the whole Bitcoin ecosystem? And importantly, what it means for you if you want to be properly informed.
Yeah, we'll be looking into their backgrounds, the sort of philosophies driving how they're built,
The different approaches.
the key technical bits, the features, and, the trade-offs.
Yeah.
What you gain or lose depending on which way you might lean.
Okay, sounds good. Let's start at the beginning then, origins. Bitcoin Core, where did that come from?
Well, Bitcoin Core, its lineage goes straight back to the beginning, to Satoshi Nakamoto's original client back in 2009.
The very first one.
The very first one. After Satoshi stepped away, the project kept going, kept evolving, and it sort of formally became Bitcoin Core around 2014.
Okay.
Now it's maintained by a really large, decentralized group of contributors. It's generally considered the reference implementation, the standard, you could say.
The benchmark. And Bitcoin Knots. That sounds like it branched off somehow.
It did, yeah. Bitcoin Knots came about in 2011. It was created by a developer named Luke Dash Jr.
Ah, okay.
It actually started as Bitcoin LJR, then got renamed in 2014. Same year, Core solidified its name.
Interesting timing.
The key thing is it's built as a set of patches, like modifications,
Right.
on top of the Bitcoin Core code.
So it uses Core as its base.
Exactly. Think of it like Core, but with some extra bits added or changed. It shares that fundamental code base, but layers on features or policy choices that maybe haven't been accepted into Core or aren't yet.
Why do that?
Often the idea is to include features that fit a specific vision Luke Dutch Jr. has for Bitcoin, or sometimes to sort of experiment with things being considered for Core.
So same roots, different branches growing in slightly different directions.
Yeah.
What about the core beliefs, the philosophies behind how they develop things and handle updates?
Right. This is where you really see the difference in approach. Bitcoin Core, it operates with a massive emphasis on consensus.
Everyone agreeing.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Changes are handled very, very cautiously. They go through intense review, loads of testing. The absolute top priority is keeping the network stable and secure.
Makes sense given most nodes run it.
Exactly. Because it's the dominant client, its releases effectively set the network rules. So big changes need really broad agreement from all the maintainers and reviewers. It's a deliberately slow, careful process.
Very methodical. And knots, how does that compare?
Knots also cares deeply about security, absolutely. But it shows maybe a greater willingness to fold in features that are more experimental, or perhaps more opinionated.
Opinionated how?
Well, reflecting a specific viewpoint on how things should work. It often integrates features faster, things that might just be under discussion for Core,
Like an early adopter.
sort of. Or sometimes bringing back experimental things from Core for more testing. The development, being primarily driven by Luke Dash Jr., feels more individualistic in its direction.
Okay, so Core is the big, cautious ship of state, and Knots is maybe a faster, more agile research vessel exploring nearby waters. How does this actually show up in the tech? If I'm running one or the other, what differences would I actually see?
You'd see it in quite a few places. For instance, Bitcoin Knots often include extra RPC commands,
RPC.
remote procedure calls, basically ways for advanced users or other programs to talk to the node, get specific info, or tell it to do things that aren't in the main user interface.
Like more knobs and dials.
Exactly that. More commands generally mean more fine-grained control, deeper insights into what your node is doing.
Some more ways to tweak it.
Precisely. And Knots usually offers more configuration options generally, letting tech-savvy users really customize how their node behaves on the network.
Okay. Any other big technical differences?
Yeah, mining functionality is one. Bitcoin Core largely removed the built-in mining capability years ago. You use separate software for that now.
Right.
But Knots has kept some of that direct mining functionality. So for miners who prefer that integrated approach, Knots can be appealing.
A niche, but important for some. What else?
Historically, there have been differences in how they prioritize transactions waiting to be confirmed and how they estimate the right transaction fees.
Sure.
Sometimes subtle, but it can affect performance.
Okay.
You might also find knots sometimes includes user interface tweaks or improvements earlier than core, things that might eventually make their way into core,
Mm-hmm.
but knots users get them first.
Like a proving ground for UI ideas.
Potentially, yeah. And BIPs, Bitcoin Improvement Proposals, proposals for new features or standards.
Right, the way Bitcoin evolves.
Knots sometimes implements those BIPs earlier than core does,
Mhm.
allows for quicker real-world testing of these potential new protocol bits.
Interesting. I also remember reading something about how they handle data stored on the blockchain itself.
Yes, good
Mhm.
point. OP return data. That's a key difference. Bitcoin Core puts a strict limit on how much data you can embed in a transaction using OP return, just 83 bytes.
Why SUML?
Primarily to discourage people from using the blockchain like a general database to keep it focused on financial transactions.
Makes sense. And knots.
Knots makes this configurable. You can allow up to 4,096 bytes, much larger.
Oh, that's a big difference.
It is,
Yeah.
and it makes Knots more attractive for developers who want to build applications that store data on Bitcoin. It really highlights a fundamental difference in vision. What is the Bitcoin blockchain for?
Yeah, that's a core philosophical split right there. Okay, what about replacing transactions? Like if one gets stuck, replace by fee.
RBF, yeah. Another difference. Bitcoin Core enables RBF by default now. Lets you bump the fee on an unconfirmed transaction to try and get it mined faster.
Useful if you're in a hurry.
Can be. Bitcoin Knots, though, offers RBF as an option you can turn on or off. Gives the node operator more say over the rules for transactions sitting in their node's memory pool, the mempool.
So again, knots giving more direct control to the user.
That's a recurring theme.
And I think I read something about spam, differences in handling spammy-looking transactions.
You did. Knots generally ships with stricter default rules about which transactions it will relay or pass on to other nodes.
Why?
The aim is often to reduce the spread of transactions that might be considered low value or network spam. And Core? Core tends to have more neutral default relay policies. The idea is to ensure wider compatibility, not making too many assumptions about what others might consider valid.
Okay, so this pattern holds. Core aims for broad consensus, stability, maybe a slower pace on new stuff. Knots is more for the power user who wants extra control, maybe earlier access to features. Let's talk about who actually builds these things. The teams behind them.
Right, Bitcoin Core.
Hmm.
Well, it benefits from having a much larger, much more diverse group of developers contributing,
Many hands make light work.
or at least allow for more resources, more people available for testing, security audits, just general upkeep of the code.
And knots.
Knots is primarily maintained by Luke Dash Jr. Others contribute too, but it's largely his project. It builds on Core, remember, so it integrates all the work done on Core.
It gets the core updates.
Yes, and then adds its own layer of features and modifications on top.
That difference in team size makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go a bit deeper into the philosophy and governance again. We touched on it, but how are decisions really made?
In Core, it's that deliberate consensus thing.
Yeah.
Multiple maintainers, strong peer review culture. Changes generally need broad buy-in before they get merged and released. It's designed for caution,
Slow and steady.
pretty much. With Knots, since it's more driven by one person, it naturally reflects Luke Dashjer's specific vision and priorities more directly. Compatibility with Core's main rules is vital, of course. But the choice of which extra features go in, that largely rests with him.
How does that play out with really big potential changes, like changing the actual Bitcoin protocol rules?
Core is extremely cautious about anything that touches the core protocol rules. Any change like that needs massive testing, huge community discussion, widespread agreement across the whole ecosystem before it would even be considered safe.
Understandably.
Knots generally sticks to the same established consensus rules, but because of its development style, it might be quicker to implement or experiment with features related to debated changes, though always aiming to stay compatible with the main network.
You also mentioned default settings can differ. What do those defaults tell us?
Yeah, the defaults can be quite revealing. Knots often ships with different settings than Core, and these often reflect a particular view of how the network should operate.
Like the stricter transaction relay rules you mentioned.
Exactly. That signals a preference for a certain kind of network traffic out of the box. Core's defaults are usually more neutral, aiming for maximum compatibility across all sorts of nodes and users.
Security, obviously huge for Bitcoin. How do these different development styles affect security?
Well, Core, with its bigger pool of contributors, just inherently gets more eyes on the code, more eyeballs looking for potential bugs or vulnerabilities.
Safety in numbers, kind of?
To an extent, Knots inherits all the security work done on the core code it's based on, which is substantial. But the Knots-specific additions, they have fewer dedicated reviewers focused just on them.
But have there been actual problems?
It's important to say both have really strong security track records historically. No major incidents traced uniquely to one versus the other, but arguably the sheer scale of Core's review process offers an extra layer of scrutiny.
Okay. What about keeping up to date? How often do new versions come out?
Bitcoin Core tends to have a pretty regular, predictable release cycle. You can generally anticipate when new versions will land.
And knots?
Knots updates usually follow core releases, but typically with a bit of a lag.
Why the delay?
Because the Knots maintainers need time to take the latest core release, merge it in, and then add and test their own specific features on top of that updated base.
Makes sense. It's an extra step.
Yeah.
So putting it all together, when would someone choose Core, and when might knots be the better pick?
Okay, Bitcoin Core is likely your go-to if your main thing is using the most widely deployed, most heavily tested version.
The safe bet.
In many ways, yes. If you value the support of that huge developer community, if you like a conservative approach to features, and especially if you need maximum stability, like for a business running on Bitcoin, production environments.
Got it. And knots. Who is that for?
Knots might be a better fit if you're specifically looking for those extra features, those configuration options that Core doesn't offer.
The power user.
Often, yes. Or if you particularly agree with Luke Dashier's vision for Bitcoin. If you want to experiment with potential future Core features now. If you need a specific Knots-only function, maybe advanced mempool controls or certain privacy features like CoinJoin that have sometimes been integrated.
Right.
And finally, some people run Knots just because they believe in supporting software diversity. Having multiple compatible implementations is seen as healthy for the network.
So Core, the reliable standard. Knots, customization, experimentation, specific features. What do the numbers actually say? How many people run each one?
The network stats are pretty clear. Bitcoin Core is overwhelmingly dominant. It runs on something like 95 to 98% of publicly visible nodes.
Wow, nearly all of them.
Yeah, Bitcoin Knots is much smaller, but still significant, usually somewhere in the 1 to 3% range.
So a small minority, but not insignificant.
Exactly. And that distribution kind of reflects their roles. Core as the reference, Knots is a more specialized alternative.
So thinking about decentralization, that core Bitcoin idea, what does the fact that knots even exists tell us? Why does it matter that there are alternatives, even if one is dominant?
It matters hugely. The very existence of Knots is like Exhibit A for Bitcoin being open source. Anyone can take the code, change it, run their own version.
Freedom to fork, basically.
But crucially, Knots stays compatible with the main network's consensus rules. It doesn't split off and create its own incompatible coin.
That's key.
Absolutely. It acts like a pressure valve. It allows different ideas, different approaches to be tried out in the real world without breaking the network's fundamental agreement. Innovation without fragmentation.
So different labs working under the same physics laws.
That's a great way to put it. It shows that no single group controls Bitcoin's development path. But it also means if you do run a minority client like Knots, you really need to understand what you're doing, the trade-offs, the technical details.
Right. Okay, let's try and wrap this up. What's the main takeaway from this deep dive into core versus knots?
I think the key thing is that both play really vital but different roles. Core is all about stability, security, broad consensus. It's the bedrock for those people and businesses.
The foundation.
Exactly. Knots offers a path for tailored features, more user control, and exploring different development ideas, mainly for users with specific needs or more technical know-how.
And the fact they can coexist.
Ultimately makes Bitcoin stronger. It encourages code diversity. Different philosophies can run in parallel, but they all still agree on the basic rules. That's powerful.
So for you listening, when you think about the software running Bitcoin, it really boils down to your priorities, doesn't it? Stability and ease versus flexibility and control, perhaps with more complexity.
Which leads to a final thought to chew on. Given that no single group, no company, no foundation controls Bitcoin, including how its software evolves, what does the fact that different compatible implementations like Knots continue to exist and develop tell us? What does it say about how decentralized technologies can balance that need for stability with the constant drive for innovation?
Definitely something to ponder. Thanks for taking that deep dive with us today.
My pleasure.
Until our next exploration.